Hello. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Bolden Experience Podcast, where your difference makes a difference, where we have courageous conversation, and where boldness meets purpose. I know y'all see these amazing, handsome brothers next to me today, and y'all know we've been talking about this for a while. So this is our Brave Men Bold Conversations panel, and we're going to get right into that in a minute. But y'all know how we do here. Nothing is changing. We're going to start out with a bold prayer, a bold beginning, and we're going to get right into this manhood discussion on today. So, Father God, I just thank you for this amazing opportunity to be able to fellowship with my brothers on today, Lord. We know that iron sharpens iron, Father God, and we know that you're going to be in the midst of this conversation on today, Lord, that you would just lead us. Lord, we just ask that you just continue to protect us and even protect our brother who's on the way, who will be joining us later today, Dr. Andrew Patton, as he's traveling this way, Lord, Father God. We thank you for the vision. We thank you for other brothers being inspired on today to know, Lord, that in today's society, you could be the best man version of yourself that you can be. It's in your son, Christ Jesus' name we pray. Amen and amen.
Amen.
Now, that is important to make sure that we invite God into this conversation on today. I'm excited just to be here and have you all join us on today as we get into this discussion. But right before we get into this panel discussion, y'all know I like to leave you with something encouraging to allow you to understand that no matter what you go through, you can overcome it. And that is our bold beginnings. So today I saw a quote that says that the wounds we refuse to heal will spill onto others. The wounds that we refuse to heal will spill onto others. And I think that's an amazing conversation that we're going to be getting into today. But when we don't heal from our trauma and our pain, we end up bleeding onto other people. And we see that continuously in our relationships. So I always recommend like therapy, but also prayer at the same time. I know growing up, they used to say, pray it away, but it's okay to talk to a therapist. It's okay to deal with your own issues, especially to my brothers out there, because when we don't heal from our pain and our trauma, we end up cutting into other people and hurting other people along the way. So let's deal with what's been going on in our lives. Maybe it's something that you're holding on to, the spirit of unforgiveness. We want to make sure we deal with that so we can be the best versions of ourselves that we can be. Y'all agree with me, brother?
Absolutely.
Yep.
Absolutely.
So that is based on Proverbs 4:23. I hope that inspires you today to continue to deal with our emotions internally. And we're going to talk more about that as we get into this panel on today. So I'm going to go ahead and introduce these amazing brothers that are with me today. And we're just going to get right into the conversation and really discuss today what it means to be a man and manhood in 2025, because I really feel like this panel is important because there's a lot of things that I want to learn and experience and hear from other brothers, as well as be able to share with you all as well. So on the panel today, we have, start over here, we got Tyrie Cuffie, a marketing professional, an actor, and a motivational speaker. Welcome to the panel, Tyrie.
Thank you for having me.
Did I miss anything that you want to make sure you get out there about who you are as an individual?
I'm just a man out here just building. I'm in the process of just rebuilding my life right now. So I had to start over after a very long relationship. So, just trying to get back into it.
All right, and we can't wait to hear more about what you have going on. I also had this amazing man of God here who I continue to admire. He is Pastor Jay Jordan. He is a filmmaker, a pastor, and a teacher. Anything else you want to add on to that, Pastor?
No, that's it.
All right, and what church are you pastoring at?
Victory Empowerment Indicator.
All right. And then I got over here Mr. Travis Sidney, a deputy sheriff and a former MMA fighter.
Yes, sir.
Anything else you want to add to that?
No, just a man on his healing journey. That's all.
All right.
Yeah, I've been through a lot. I've been through a lot, trying to get more in touch with my emotional side, become more emotionally available to other women that I be in relationship with. Yeah.
Okay. And we can talk more about that today as well. And you all know I'm Dr. Deonte Bolden here, filmmaker, playwright, author, all those great things as well, just for those who do not know who I am. But we're going to get into this. We're going to start refining. We're going to start a topic today of redefining manhood and boldness. You know, we have a lot going on in 2025 and experiencing a lot of different things. And I want to put it out there. So I'm going to put the conversation out to anybody who wants to pick up the mic and take it. Let's do that. So in today's world, what does being a man truly look like for you all? Because it continues to switch over the years. I think what a man looks like now is not what a man was in 2000 and 1995. So what does that look like, you know, for you all as you approach manhood and what it looks like? Anybody want to go into that?
I'll let y'all start.
I would say like it's a little back in the days. It was kind of like it was a script you had to follow. You know, you work, you take care of your family. Your woman, she's at home. You have that's what the structure was. But now today, it's kind of like a lot of men have to prove themselves up front, and so it's a lot harder just to be out here and just to show that your growth and you know, I feel like it's a lot harder. It's very, very hard when it comes to just being out here.
So I think what I'm getting from what you're saying is that a man now, it seems like it's harder to define what a man is because there's so many stipulations on what a man is and who he's supposed to be. Okay.
Like these ladies out here want men to provide all the time, but sometimes they don't understand. When we have to take care of you, we still gotta take care of ourselves too. You know, it's hard out here. Just to be honest with you.
You gotta carry a lot of weight internally, and that people aren't seeing on the outside, and it's like it's a battle. It's a hard battle.
And I think roles have changed as well too.
Absolutely.
Because men are not. I mean, we say men are providers, but men are stay-at-home dads now. And then you have to fight the stigma of being, oh well, I'm not masculine enough because I decided to stay home with the kids because people have different types of ideas of what family looks like.
Different dynamics now.
Yeah, it's a different dynamic.
I would say too, like to add, I think we're in a generation where, like in the 90s, maybe even the 80s, you can kind of group that together, where a lot of brothers seen the single parent life. And so this is like one of the first generations that kind of is like coming out of that era because our parents was more of a 2-family household and then it went more one parent. So this is a generation that's kind of like we've seen our grandparents and our parents. So we've seen two different dynamics. And I think a lot of brothers now genuinely want to be that husband and that father, but it's so different in this era versus where it was 30 years ago, when that was a little bit more feasible. You're dealing with economical things now before the job market is more competitive, not just only with the dynamics of men and women, but jobs going overseas and different things of that nature, competing with AI now. So it makes it a lot more difficult to be the traditional thing that you were taught. Because no one really had the foresight of what will be 30 years from now. So a lot of brothers now, I think, are trying to navigate the best way that they can. And I think that's why I tell people you have to champion brothers, because if you don't champion that man internally, he may not show what's going on, but he's feeling the effects of it, of the inadequacy of that. And so I think a lot of times the best thing to do for a man, and especially in a relationship, you have to champion him. Because if he doesn't feel that affirmation, he's going to just look downhill.
Yes, and I think that's a big issue. You know, I think the standards of what's been placed on men, a lot of times we feel like we can't meet the standards of what, even when we approach relationships, you know, you got to have a certain amount of money. Or you have to have, you know, a lot of times with women, they have this list of what they want. And a man looks at that and be like, well, I don't think I can measure up to what she needs. And men will draw back before we even try to compete with what those standards are.
It causes a lot of men to have a lot of like identity issues because you got a lot of women trying to tell the men how to be men, and they're follow into that because they want to please that woman. So yeah, you got to get back to our own. Just you got to figure it out for yourself. You can't allow a woman to tell you who you are as a man. You got to figure that out for yourself.
Yes, absolutely. So men have been taught that vulnerability is a weakness. How have you learned to be bold and vulnerable in sharing and opening up, and what makes you stronger? Vulnerability can be a weakness that so many men tend to not want to take that next step and be vulnerable, or I can't cry, or I can't, act a certain way. I have to always be this masculine guy. How do you deal with that? Because I think that's the biggest thing with men and what we go through in society. You can't show too many emotions, because that makes you, what society say, weak or not a man. Yeah. How do we navigate that in our lives?
Therapy.
Yeah.
I would say that.
That's a big one.
Especially when it comes to relationships, a woman will tell you she wants you to be vulnerable. She wants you to be open. And the moment that you do that, you're trapped now, because
it backfires.
It's always going to backfire.
Yeah, you can't let when a man opens up and weaponize it against them.
That's true.
That's because I think sometimes they will weaponize your vulnerability, and for a man to open up, it takes more than a woman.
Absolutely.
Because a lot of times as men, we are trying to safeguard ourselves. We're trying to show the strength, and so that vulnerability, if you weaponize it, you now do so much more damage to him, because he's never going to open. It's going to take a while for him to open up again. And that can turn into malice, that can turn into anger, that can turn into a lot of different things.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the thing that really set in my mind growing up is that men couldn't cry, because I was taught in my family, you got to keep it together. You can't show your emotions. You can't appear weak. And I come from a single family home where it was my mom, it was me and my brother, and I feel like I had to be the one that step up and be the man in the household, and that was traumatic for me, because to this day it takes a lot for me to express my emotions. Before I tell you and become vulnerable, I'll just kind of like reserve myself, or I would just like isolate myself from people. And I'm working on that as a man myself, that it's okay to show my emotions, it's okay to cry, it's okay to be upset, and those things. I don't know if any of you all had challenges with that, like
absolutely.
Opening up.
Absolutely.
I had challenges in my last girlfriend. I was about to propose to her. I could tell you I was in love, but I got out of love a little bit.
So what we're going to do right now, we got Pastor Patton. I just saw him come in. We're going to continue this conversation, and then we're going to come right back on the Bolden Experience, and we're going to have Pastor Patton join us. We're going to continue this conversation of manhood and vulnerability. So y'all stay tuned. We'll take a quick break, and we'll be right back. All right. Welcome back to the Bolden Experience. We had to make sure we got our other brother in here with us today, Dr. Andrew Patton in the back. Dr. Andrew Patton is an amazing pastor. I want to give him time quickly just to introduce himself, because he's joining us, and we're going to get back into the conversation. Welcome, Dr. Andrew Patton.
Well, it's glad to see you, Dr. Bolden.
All right. And I know I said a pastor because you're definitely someone who I admire in the kingdom, but anything else you want to add to your title or who you are?
Just a servant of God, Transforming Faith Church International, found online, Clubhouse, on also on Facebook, just a servant of God.
All right. And we're definitely going to get more into that on today as we get towards the end. But we want to continue to keep our conversation going, because we were talking about vulnerability. And what it means to be vulnerable and be a man. We started a conversation. We were talking about redefining manhood, and we're talking about vulnerability. And we were just having a conversation about that. A lot of times, even in manhood, it's not safe for us to be vulnerable, because we're not given that safe space in society. So I want to continue the conversation. I think you were saying something, and then we're going to go over to Dr. Patton about your experience with vulnerability. Do you want to go ahead and continue to share that with us before we start?
Well, I can. When I was younger, when I was 17 years old, I thought I had my first biological kid. When I was 21 years old, I found out that she wasn't my kid. During that time, I was vulnerable. Loving my daughter, but I had to walk away from a kid that wasn't mine. So, at 27, 20 years old, I had my first biological daughter. Yes, I love my daughter. My child mother, she was sleeping with my friend. She thought he was the father. I found out how I was having a kid from my line brother, my fraternity brother. So since then, I've been like, you know what? Forget it. I said forget it. I'm not gonna be vulnerable to no woman anymore. I started dating this girl in 2022. You know, we're at the same time working in law enforcement. You know, she always be like, "What's happening? What's happening? What's happening?" Hey, open up to me, open up. I could never open up to her because of my past trauma, the past pain, everything that happened to me. So then, you know, I remember because it was probably was her breaking point the last week. I was working in Rice Street. I walked into a cell. I saw a man hanging.
Hmm.
Yeah, he died. Yeah, he died. Coming home at nighttime, you know, she kept on calling. Oh, what's going on? What's going on? What's going on? Then she broke on me. Oh, but I don't think you like me. You not talk to me. You know what I'm saying? I didn't have any time to open up to her and tell her, hey, this is going on with me. That's what's not going on with me. I just need help. I need time to navigate through my emotions.
Mm-hmm.
So I could understand what she was saying, but it was a time that I needed her. And she just left me. During that time, I was going to propose to her, looking at rings, taking singing lessons. I can sing. I had my whole engagement plan. When she broke up, me, it was like, it hurt me. It really did hurt me.
And I'm glad that you're able to express that, and thank you for sharing that, because a lot of times, just like I was saying, when we express ourselves, we also fear rejection. Like, is the other person going to be accepting of what I'm saying and how I'm feeling? Is my feelings are going to be ignored? We tend to do that. I know for me, I have an issue with that because I'm like, if I'm too vulnerable, like I'm afraid of being rejected by the other person. So I'm working on that for myself. But I appreciate you even sharing that, and I'm definitely praying for your situation, even with that. Did anybody want to add on to anything?
I'm going through a similar situation like what you went through. I did propose. We were engaged for the past 3 years, and she kind of just left me at a moment in my life where I was kind of at my lowest. And you know, like they say, that shows you who the person is. You know, it was on a high for years, and now that I'm down, you can't thug it out with me. So I feel where you coming from.
Absolutely. Pastor Patton, did you want to?
Absolutely. Vulnerability, and even with my current situation, it's like, man, I think I'm in the right place today. I think that vulnerability, it reveals our ability. Let me hone in on that word for a second. To either recover or to continue to go forward. And sometimes what happens is that we don't know who we can be vulnerable with until we're vulnerable and we trust we have the strength. But in all of our cases, in betrayal, because that's exactly what that is. You're dealing with betrayal. And of course, as a pastor, you know, the greatest betrayal was Jesus. And even with betrayal, Jesus was able to still show up and have his ability to continue to be who he was supposed to be and what was at stake. So a lot of times I think that with our vulnerabilities as men, we forget sometimes what's at stake. And here's a stat, and I'll be quick with this because, again, you know, I'm a preacher. You've heard me on Sundays. One of the things that's interesting is that with our ability to respond to chaos, our ability to recover from it really shows our strength. And it shows our ability that when we are vulnerable, that there is that one person, we can't allow that person to not make us still show up. And that's what Jesus didn't do. He shows up to 11 guys because Judas had already killed himself. Note that, because your betrayer will always kill himself. They always will. They will always put themselves in a position to be revealed. So they are already handled. But for those that can handle our vulnerability, even after they've messed up or they've been there to support us, we have to still show up, and that's what he does. And even when Thomas, he's like, I ain't gonna believe it unless I touch him, because he wasn't in the room. And when he was able to touch it, sometimes with vulnerability, you have to allow yourself to be touched. And so as men, what we can't do is allow past injuries for that one person or one people, not even romantically, but family, friends, business, church, all those kind of things. Still show yourself, because now what you're doing is you're developing the intelligence to respond, the ability to be vulnerable. And when it don't serve me, even with tears in my eyes, I can unplug. I can move forward. I can figure out what really serves me in that moment, and now allow things to continue to go on, and not recognize the signs of, hey, this may not work out. And if it even is a situation where it may not work out and I need confirmation, hopefully I've selected well to be able to speak to that person, to let them know, hey, I'm vulnerable, I'm naked. You the same way, I'm the same way, let's talk through this. We should be able to talk through our insecurities as men. And sometimes as men, in closing, we're not always able to share those vulnerabilities. And when we do, we find out what we really got. And guess what? I'm glad I found out. And maybe we should have those temperature checks within the first 3 to 6 months to be vulnerable enough to know, and not just be so enamored with what's new. And of course, women are beautiful. I mean, our sisters, they're beautiful, right?
Absolutely.
And we can already be married to them in my head without really doing the proper vetting. So, and that comes from vulnerability, and also the ability to properly discern, or which means to judge well what you got in front of you.
Right.
Absolutely.
And I think it creates a safe space for, even who we date. If we can't be vulnerable with you, then it's not a safe space for us. Because, man, we want a safe space. We want to be able to feel like that we can express ourselves and not be judged,
Absolutely.
Of course, God gives you wisdom on what to share and who to share what with. But I think even in my life, I've realized, I've created my safe space of people, because everybody doesn't deserve to have certain access to us.
Yeah,
We got to
absolutely.
be mindful of that. But speaking of vulnerability, I want to talk about, some of our silent battles that we've, had to overcome, or we're still fighting through. If we could just share whatever you feel comfortable sharing. What are some of the silent battles as men that you have faced, or you're still kind of working through? Because you never know what you may be going through with another brother out there, maybe you're dealing with. So I want to open up the floor for that.
Absolutely.
Maybe it's anger issues, whatever it is you choose to.
On my end, my mom passed away when I was 20. We were like best friends. We was in the club together. Like, that was my best friend. And since then, I just feel like I have a hole in my heart. Like, I'm constantly, constantly just in that emotional state. So it's like when I'm out here in the world and trying to be strong, I have that thought. I still have dreams, and it's kind of like nightmares. Like, my mom will pass away in a different way in a dream, and I wake up just in an emotional state, and I just looking for a partner and looking for somebody to be there for me, and you also don't want to show that, because then you look weak. So that's a battle that I've been facing. It's been 15 years, and I'm still to this day, I still go through it.
And I want to send my condolences to you first. And my piece of advice for you is to just continue to have those moments. I was talking to one of my friends yesterday, and he was like, I don't feel like I'm being a Superman today. He was like, I'm going through a loss, and there's certain days where we should have the right to understand that we don't have to be superhuman all the time. When we're facing things and we're going through things as men, it's important for us to be able to cry, express our emotions. Otherwise, you channel that into other things, violence, or that's why we have so many brothers that are incarcerated now, or even dead, because they suppress emotions. So I want you to feel like that you have that opportunity, and God will continue to give you that opportunity to grieve. We don't properly grieve a lot of times. I expressed my emotions when my brother passed, but I channeled it in other ways that weren't healthy. And I want you to understand that too. You have people here, you have brothers here that you're developing, and hopefully those relationships. But have that moment to be able to really truly grieve and go through that process.
If I can piggyback, like I lost both my parents in 12 months.
Oh, wow.
And so my dad, we knew he was about to die, and so that was a gradual thing. And I'm a preacher, so I just started the church here in Atlanta. We just moved here. So I'm traveling back and forth to Ohio for 13 months. My parents got kidnapped in that time. A whole lot of stuff was happening. And so my dad's health just kind of went down. He passes away. A year later, my mom passed out of nowhere. My mom was 64 when she died. So it was he talked to her on that night, said, I'm going to hit you up tomorrow sometime. In the morning, they called and said she passed away. They found her dead. And so when you lose one parent, hurt. When you lose both parents, it's a different type of pain. And I think it's vice versa. Even if you lose a child or a daughter, or a spouse, it's a people a lot of times will try to push grief, but grief is a process. And everybody's grief process may be different. Some is, and depending on the connection with the person you have, the closeness you have, it's the deeper wound to it. And I always tell people, never try to shun someone's grief. Allow them to process their grief the way they are. Because we may process grief two totally different ways. And I realize that you'll go through those moments to be able to be more effectively to help someone else out in that situation. Because when my mom died, my best friend, he went through the same thing. He lost both his parents, and another friend lost both his parents. So I was the first one that went through it, so I could relate more by going through it and living it than somebody be like, man, you know what I'm saying? Because it's a whole different world. You feel the blanket of security gone. Especially for a guy to his mom, you feel like there's a level of tenderness and security, and you feel it. It's like even on holidays, you just feel it in certain situations. If it's even it's a moment of success or a moment of failure, where it's like a reaction where, man, I'm gonna call my mom, and you won't have that no more. I'm like, man, I need to talk to my mom. You don't have that no more. And I think a lot of times when you lose that, that's a jolt. That's a jolt. It's a very uncomfortable. This might be more. It's more uncomfortable than vulnerable, because it's like, who now do I vent to? And if you're dealing with that and you're single and you're doing all that, a lot of those things are factors. And sometimes people who have not been in those shoes can't really relate. And so that's why I've always been very open about losing both my parents, because I've learned how to heal from that. And it's not saying that it's not moments and times I don't miss them. Of course I do. But I learned that I had to go through my process of grief, and I grieved wrong at first. And I had to learn how to adjust it. I thought grieving was putting in work. So I traveled and worked for like 2 years straight and was like doing 80 hours a week. And I thought that was the way to process the grief out, is putting in what I love. And it helped to a degree, but it wasn't giving me the fullness of what I thought I needed. Because after I did all that, I couldn't be by myself for a long time. I hated to be by myself because your mind start thinking. And so I had to allow myself to have the quiet moment to deal with that inner pain and really confront that. And when I did that, I found the strength in that to help other people who've been through moments like that, because I realized I wasn't the only one that lost their mom. And I lost my parents. I was 20. I was in my 20s when I lost both my parents, which is kind of like relatively young. And so I sympathize with people who go through those things, because, man, it's a process. But I always tell people, allow your process. However, if it's 10 years, 20 years, man, whatever your process is, the key thing is going through it.
Absolutely.
I wanted to piggyback on that if I could, and tie it into the answer of the question. One of the things that I faced, 2 divorces. I lost my parents. At least I lost my mother when I was 4 years old. And I grew up without my birth mother. But one of the things I've learned in some of those losses, even to what he was saying about his mother, that grief, and what he just said, we just don't know. Grief, we process it different. But one thing I've learned, and it's funny, as a preacher, another preacher, hey preacher, Ecclesiastes 1:18, I just preached this 2 weeks ago. I'm sitting in my bed really processing the loss and the breaking of my family. And as I'm sitting there processing it, the Lord speaks to me and says, go to Ecclesiastes 1. I said, and I go and I read the first 3 verses. And it talks about life being vanity, our success and the things that we want, the things that we desire. And the success or desiring of it is not the issue. Even our families, our relationships, our parents, those things that we desire as men or as people, that's not the problem. It's how we view it. And so something that he said really sparked this thought, and I'll tie it into verse 18 of Ecclesiastes chapter 9. When it really talks about you gain perspective or wisdom from grief or loss. And so what you're experiencing, my brother, is you're really getting perspective in the loss, because there's nobody that can ever replace mom, not even your wife. Even though, when we get married, they are a replica of what our mothers and fathers are supposed to be to us, but they're not them. So it's the lessons that we are to start to really build and rebuild from, because without that pain, you wouldn't be as wise as you are now. And so that's why we have to really be honest about what we're feeling, to your point. And then to his point, the grieving process, you won't cry as much. You may have some triggers, But now acceptance, that's one of the last stages of grief that we don't talk about though. Is once we learn to accept it, now we get perspective, which now leads to wisdom. And then the Bible tells us and it teaches where wisdom is the principle getting, and all thy getting, get understanding. I may not understand everything, but as those things are unveiled through my perspective, through my experience, as I'm grieving, then now I'm getting wisdom. And as I begin to get wisdom, the other end of being wise or wisdom is dominion. When men were first created, we were created for dominion's sake. So now we can rule even though we're wounded. The strength when we don't feel like being Superman some days. When we want to be Clark Kent, we want to keep our glasses on and somebody's in trouble. We can find the strength to still offer wisdom and perspective because, and I'll say this in closing, I preached this on Father's Day at a church in Nashville, and the Lord gave me this thought about what fatherhood really means, because there's healing in it, manhood. We are protectors by nature, our very presence. So when Adam is hiding from God, he's hiding from the presence of God. So it's the mere presence of who we are as men. And that's why we have to gain perspective in our grief and in our losses, because what the world don't need for us is for our presence to be removed. Because that's why in Malachi 4, he said there's a curse that comes up on the earth when when men's presence are not what they should be in the hearts of fathers and kids, and our presence in communities are not there. So that's why we ought to have the incentive that when we are knocked down by life to continue to move forward, even though we're bleeding. Even though we're trying to learn and we're trying to grieve. And sometimes, watch this, the world does not always give us a safe place. And I'll say this, I promise I'm going to be quiet. But men, we don't give each other even the license to do so. We call each other simps and we call each other our names and we say all these different things. But then we say, hey, come on, bro, let's hug it out. But then we're not respecting the fact, as my brother said, we all got different perspectives. We got different, experiences. So we got to gain the wisdom, take that dominion back, take our strength back, and then get our vision back. And when we do, then we can move forward.
Absolutely.
That's good info.
And were you gonna say something? Because I thought you were about to say something.
He like he's gonna say something.
I know, because I was like, I felt it.
No, everybody was saying y'all parents died. My parents were alive, but they was never there for me. So you said my mother. Yeah, it was a point in time in my life my mother left me. I got back to my mother. My mother was and I love her, but she was a bitter woman. She really was. Told my father. I look at my father. My mother used to beat me because I promise you I thank you because I look at my father. My father left my mother. I don't know what happened between them. When that happened, I never saw my father again. My father, we are from the Caribbean. It ain't that big in the Caribbean. My father probably lived 5 minutes away from me. My kindergarten graduation, I saw my father. He was there. What was my elementary graduation? Never saw my father. Junior high graduation, never saw my father. High school graduation, never saw my father. College graduation, never saw my father. I got in my mind, I said, hey, you know what? Let me call this man. I graduated December 13, 2014 from North Carolina Saint University. I pushed my graduation 6 months away in May so my family could be there. Expecting my father to be there. This is what my father told me. I had to work. I said, all right, you got it. I said, we ain't even got talking about. You had to work elementary, junior high, high school, and college. At some point in time, I'd be like, man, I don't need you in my life anymore. I really don't. So,
thank you for sharing.
They was there, but they was never there. So I always felt like I never had nobody there for me. But point in time in my life, I became suicidal because I had nobody to turn to.
So, and that's deep, the presence of father, especially for men. Mothers are great because I have an amazing mom. My mom is in the studio now. Shout out to my mama. But there's just something about me and my dad. We're actually working on our relationship. Because I had a lot of resentment. When my parents divorced when I was 4, I felt like my dad wasn't really there, and I think a lot of the insecurities I have is because of the lack of the absence of my father just not being there. For me now, it's hard for me to get into relationships or experience marriage because there's just certain things that I'm learning on my own that I feel like I should already know. Like if my tire would go flat right now, I wouldn't know how to change a tire. You know what I mean? Because I just didn't have that growing up. And I think a lot of the insecurities I brought into my adulthood, they would say, will you be a good husband? Are you going to be man enough for that woman? So I kind of like draw back. And I think it's important, as men to make sure that we are being there for our children, especially for the young men, because, you carry that onto your adulthood and you're like, I won't make nobody happy. I'm just going to be, an extra body there for her and she's not going to feel like she has a man. So it's just a lot of things that I'm just processing and God is helping me to work through,
And that's awesome.
Because we think that just not showing up for our children is just not showing up, but it becomes a life experience that child has to deal with throughout their lives.
No, I'm saying that I commend you for this building that relationship with your dad because if you have that opportunity and you take it, I think it's a wonderful thing. And because I didn't have a relationship with my dad until I was 25, and by the time I met him, he was sick, but he didn't tell me. And so we come to find he has dementia. So I only really knew him for 3 months. His dementia kind of got progressively worse. And it wasn't an easy thing to let him in my life because he had missed so much. And I was in a place where I was like, forget it. So I look identical to my dad. Like, you see me, you can see him. And so I didn't know I had uncles. I couldn't tell you what my dad's birthday was. And so when he got sick, I didn't know nothing about his medical history. I didn't know he had diabetes. I didn't know he had this. I didn't know his family history. I had never been to know my dad's family. I didn't know I had brothers out there. I didn't know I had siblings out there. And so, that's and I had to learn. So God spoke to me. He said, how can you father anyone else if you don't accept to forgive your own father? You can't wait for the apology for forgiveness.
Yes.
And so I learned with my dad's situation because he never said sorry. And I said, if I keep on waiting for him to say sorry, I'm going to be waiting a whole long time. And so if I got to really let me be the man that you weren't to me. And let me be the son where you weren't the father. So I took care of my dad for his last 5 years of his life where he missed my sick days. And I had to do it from a place of purity. I couldn't do it out of a place of malice. And it taught me how to be a better dad and son simultaneously. And so, I commend when people have that opportunity. If you ever do have that, I say be willing to try it. At least attempt it. And if they fall short, at least you made the first step to do it. And you can't feel bad or you won't feel regret in that. So I always commend when a brother has a chance, because you need that moment with your father is needed as a man, because you know who you are there, truly where you come from. Because it's thank God for mothers, but there's only so much a mom can give you. It's different when you have that father connection. And so it took a minute for art. Art wasn't traditional, it wasn't perfect, but it was there. And so I'm always thankful for that space.
And I think what God helps me to understand, have a relationship with my dad, is that you have to give people grace. Because sometimes people only can give you what they were given. You know what I mean? And my dad isn't the best. He's made mistakes, but he's an amazing man in his own way. And I feel like when you go back and you look at the history of our parents, and you realize that maybe his dad wasn't there for him, and his dad wasn't there for him the way that he was supposed to be there for him. So sometimes people can only give you what they understand and what they know. And I had to understand that, and God had to remind me, as many times as you fall and you've done things, I've still been able to forgive you. So you have to learn how to forgive others. I think you wanted to say something.
Yeah, you know me well, because I've been on both sides, and I really empathize with my brother, because my oldest son is 24, and he was conceived in a relationship that was not, probably shouldn't have been, but when you're young, and I just got to Nashville making too much money for that age group wasn't wise. That's why I give grace to NBA and NFL players that get in trouble. So like, man, if 50,000 put me in trouble, I can imagine what a million would have did to me in trouble. You know, but I liken this experience to what you said. My father was in the house too. My father was a preacher. And you what you were saying, you know, the anointing of my life came from that. But I had to retrace the steps what my father went through to understand why he couldn't give me. Going back to that word I said earlier, wisdom. Some of the things that we grieve and the things that we don't understand, it'll teach us a lesson if we're really tapped into what it's trying to tell us. And one of the things I want to say, share with you to encourage you is, and what he just said, is that I'm open to my son trying to reconcile, because here's the thing that I had to really admit, even though I wasn't the catalyst to the division that happened between us. And that's a long story. I won't go into that. But I'll just say that I've learned, even from the honor of my own father, when I had to preach his funeral. And the same time, 4 years ago, the hardest thing I've ever had to do was preach my father's funeral. The Bible tells us to honor our father and mother. It didn't say that honor came because they did everything right. It just says honor. When David wouldn't kill Saul, he didn't kill Saul because Saul wasn't trying to kill him. He honored him. It said, I'm not going to kill God's anointed. In other words, I'm not going to disrespect dad. And so what I found when I was preaching his funeral, DMX had just passed away at the same time. And one of the parallels, because I didn't want to preach my father's funeral, my baby sister who I talked to all the way down here, and I were catching up a little bit, she said, look, you're going to preach our father's funeral for legacy. Nobody else can do it, and hung up the phone. I'm walking through the house, and the Lord spoke to me and said, don't you ever tell me what you're not doing. He gave me the sermon 2 years before he passed. And so when I'm standing up, I have an epiphany. I got my notes. But you know me, you've heard me preach a million times. I don't necessarily need notes. Sometimes I got to take me from stuff I think I'm going to say. And literally the Lord allowed me to remember the parallel between addiction as I was studying, because my father was addicted to drugs and alcohol for 30 plus years. And it was our prayers that kept him alive. He got 73 years. And yet I'm looking at DMX, who had just passed, who was in his early 50s, who dies. And what the Lord allowed me to do was literally take the parallel of how the church didn't really deal with addiction. We just said it was sin. But with DMX, the world and even the church community was, oh, DMX was a great guy. He prayed before his concerts and all these kind of things. And I saw the irony. And as I was really releasing it, I saw people literally getting free that had dads that went through the same thing. People, I never heard a eulogy that way. And I preached the message, and I'm not one of those classic hoopers, but it came out. And when I said my last thing now to him, and that's how I closed it, I handed the mic to the preacher that I wanted to preach it, that officiated, and I cried my eyes out. What am I saying, and why am I saying it? I'm saying that sometimes with our fatherhood journeys, even as sons or even being fathers, we have to juxtapose our experiences as fathers with what we got as sons, and have to know that there's a story. There's always a story. And sometimes it's not a very good story. It's a story that dad probably could have done a better job. But at the same time, when you learn to look at it through the lens of honor, and even through the mistakes that you've made as a man and as a father, then that can really build a bridge for you and your father. As my brother, man, it inspired me to hear you say that you still took care of your father 5 years and you didn't get the same thing. That's a quiet strength that a lot of times men, we don't get to share, nor we don't get to experience. So I will say this in closing. I think it's important to know that in that moment, standing and being the son that I needed to be, sowing that into my future, hoping that my son will someday reconnect and we can reconvene. And guess what I can do? I can take responsibility of creating a broken family, which really then caused his mother to do certain different things that was unfavorable. And when we begin to think like that as men, and we take and we own our mistakes, whether we're sons or fathers, what that does is it opens up, again, going back to this word again, wisdom, to allows us to form perspectives. And if, like you said, if we don't ever get that apology for not coming to the game, not showing up to graduation, not showing up to the wedding, all those things I experienced. My father wasn't at my weddings. He wasn't at my graduations. But I learned to honor. And when I learned to honor, there were certain blessings that came upon me. And I think that's the message. Because we see, I promise I'm quiet after this, we've seen the scene with Will Smith and his father in the Fresh Prince.
Yes.
And we have really given that a lot of airtime to say, that's how I'm supposed to respond. In the second Bel Air, they're allowing them to reconcile. That's important. To understand that fatherhood has to be reconciled. And what does reconcile really mean? We find out how it all happened, right? Because if you ever did any spreadsheets for accounting, if you're 1 penny off, that thing won't reconcile. But sometimes when those things add up and you really figure out how you and your father got to where you got to, you'll find out that you and your dad, it might be the same thing. At the end of the day.
That's true.
Let me chime in on what you were saying. When you brought up DMX, he was growing up for me. It was like a father figure to me. Like I didn't get a lot of lessons from my father or my stepfather, but I learned vulnerability and strength from him. So when you just said his name, it kind of lit up for me because his death was kind of bad for me. But just through his music and through his struggles and through his life, I learned a lot of, like I learned it was okay to cry from him. I seen him cry, and I was like, oh, that's okay. It's okay to do. You know, so it's crazy that you brought him up.
One of my favorite movies, don't judge me because I'm a Disney kid, The Lion King. And there's a scene in The Lion King that God helped me to see one day to help me to realize I needed to forgive my father was the reflection scene. Like when he went to the water and Rafiki sent him to the water because he thought his dad was still alive. And he told him to look into the water. And then he said, look closer. And it reminded me like I am my father's son, you know, regardless of how I feel, regardless of any mistakes that he's made, I'm still his son. And even with God, you know, understanding that we're a reflection of him, you know, and even though we want to walk away and I was like, I don't want to talk to my dad anymore, I had to get to a place of understanding that I needed to forgive and love him while he's here, you know, because we only get our parents for so long. And I'm blessed to even still say, you know, hearing your stories on here that I still have both of mine, you know, and I still have time to love them and respect them for who they are. So did anyone else want to add on to anything before we go to the next? As we're wrapping up, I want to talk about it's a difficult topic to talk about right now, leadership, because we see a lot of things happening in leadership. But what does leadership look like for you as men? You know, what does that look like when we think about leadership and being a man and being a leaders in positions, whether we're leaders in our families and our jobs, in our careers? What should that look like? And what does that look like?
Well, I'll start there because as a pastor, one of the things I've discovered in my journey, I'm graduating next week with my master's in biblical studies, and I just got accepted into a PhD program. So that'd be another doctoral degree.
Congratulations.
Thank you. But one of the things I've learned as a leader is at first I have to be accountable or accountability.
Yeah.
Going back to that word ability again. When the Lord gave me that revelation, it really kind of helped me to understand the real purpose of leadership, not just to have people call me pastor or to follow me, but to be responsible, be able to respond to different things, the accountability, the vulnerability, just my ability to really stand in the gap and watch for people's souls and not have them worship me, not have them, you know, in our culture, you know, the Cadillac and the chicken on Sundays and pastor's anniversaries and the wife with the big hat. It's much bigger than that. So to me, leadership means I'm accountable. I show up. When I make a mistake, I admit it. I surround myself with people, not as flunkies, but I surround myself with people that can really help the vision come to pass. And then give them the credit. And give credit where credit is due. And to invest in people. And watch this. When you invest in them, it don't mean that you're always going to get it back. And I say this in closing. One of my pet peeves with leaders, in particular pastors, when we talk about how hard the job is, I'm like, some of those guys don't have a prayer life. And I get it, right? I, you know, sometimes even as men, we talk about how hard it is to be men and how hard it is to do this and the third. And I get it. We should have those conversations. But on the flip side, true leadership means I know what I signed up for. But I'm going to put myself in position to literally get the support that I need to handle those venting moments or those disappointing moments when leadership don't always look so pretty or don't always have those big rewards. So to me, again, those three words, accountability, responsibility, and even I forgot the other one, connectability, meaning that I can connect with people. My ability to always respond and be what I'm supposed to be, that's leadership.
Absolutely. I love that accountability. I'm going to open up for anybody else.
I feel like to be a great leader, you have to be a great learner. You have to just be able to consistently want to be better, want to learn how to just be a better man. Because otherwise, you're not going to be a great leader. And also confidence. Even when you make mistakes, you have to have the confidence in to know that you learn from it. And you're going to do better next time. So I feel like those things are what's going to make a great leader.
Absolutely, absolutely. I want to take time before we leave today because it's important as we wrap this up. It's to just really iron sharpen iron and pour into each other. We kind of been on this, amazing set together, and we have kind of bonded over that. So I want to give each brother an opportunity. We'll start with you, Tyrie. You'll go to Pastor Jay. Pastor Jay will go to Pastor Patton, and Pastor Patton to me, and then we'll go here. And just one bold word that you can define just based on our conversation with each other right now and being in this environment. So I'll start with you, Tyrie, for one word that you could say about Pastor Jay right now that you want to pour into him.
I'm sorry, Richard.
So a word. So anything, like we have opinions. So a lot of times we have opinions about people when we first see them, and how we can change that today and make it something positive. So just based on hearing Pastor Jay today, what's one word that you want to leave with him? If you can think of anything?
About what I think about. I would say just from listening to you, one word would be.
That's him. Don't get it.
You said Pastor.
Just one word. Anything that comes at the top of your mind.
Make sure that you go to the right guy.
Vulnerability.
Vulnerability. Okay.
Your word. Yeah.
Pastor Jay. With Pastor Patton.
Pastor Patton. Okay. Brilliance.
Okay. Pastor Patton. Jimmy.
Boldness.
Boldness. All right. I appreciate that. I would say for you today, definitely accountability. I love how you just really just poured into, making yourself vulnerable today, but also taking accountability of, hey, I realize this in my life. And I think that's the biggest and most bold and brilliant thing that we can do is just to be able to take accountability. I want to thank you all definitely for being a part of this conversation. We're going to have to do part 2 of this.
Can I be on time next time?
No, it's fine. It's definitely fine. I want to make sure that we go around also and plug in your social medias real quick so people can know where to follow you and where they can find you at. So we'll start with you real quick.
Tyrie Cuffie. That's where you can find me on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn.
All right, Pastor Jay.
Jay Jordan everywhere on YouTube, Clubhouse, Facebook, Instagram.
All right.
And Andrew Lee Patton on Instagram, and then Dr. Andrew Patton on TikTok, and just simply Andrew Patton on Facebook.
So, where can people find you?
For me, on Instagram is God's Child _and Gift. Facebook, Nehemiah Travis Sibley.
All right. Thank you, brother, so much. We're going to go ahead and move into letting you all know as we wrap up today that the Bolden Awards 2.0 is in motion. We just revealed our first honoree, AJ and Elena Bernard, who are going to be our Bold Dreamers honorees. Make sure you all go to www.theboldenexperience.com so you all can be a part of this amazing experience. Bolden Awards will honor amazing individuals who've overcome obstacles and adversities while achieving excellence. This is going to be May 21st through the 23rd. We got your Bolding Your Story workshop, which is me teaching you how to take your story and use it as your superpower. So we have tickets as low as $55 right now to December the 31st. So you definitely want to be in the room. If you want to learn how to use your story like I've used my platform to inspire other people and be bold and brave, you definitely want to make sure you fill one of these seats today. We also have the Bolden Runway, which is going to be incorporated now into the Bolden Awards. But it's going to be the Bolden Runway where culture meets couture. So we're going to be having a Nigerian experience, and we're going to be modeling some Nigerian attire. So make sure you all connect with us. And then on May the 22nd, we have the Bolden Brunch at 12. This is an opportunity to network, meet some amazing bold leaders and entrepreneurs, and connect with them. And
congratulations, Dr. Deonte Bolden, for being nominated Person of the Year. Dr. Deonte Bolden is an award-winning playwright, filmmaker, author, and visionary entrepreneur, also awarded Most Relevant at the BB Online Awards in 2024. Dedicated to empowering others to live boldly and with purpose. As the founder of Deonte Bolden Productions and the Bolden Experience Incorporated, he continues to inspire through dynamic storytelling, faith-driven leadership, and creative excellence. Known for his book, Differently Able, which evolved into a powerful stage musical, Dr. Bolden has built a legacy that turns pain into purpose. His signature movement, the Bolden brand, unites its ventures, the Bolden Awards, Bolden Magazine, and the Bolden Experience Podcast, under the message where boldness meets greatness. To learn more about this exciting honoree, then visit his page. Once again, congratulations.
To the BB Online Awards for nominating me as Person of the Year of 2025. Just being honored and nominated is an amazing accomplishment. So make sure you guys continue to follow me for more of that. I also am hosting the Connect Women Empowering Generations Conference on March the 6th and the 7th. So if you want to get your early bird tickets, please make sure you follow all the information below. Get your tickets and be in the house. It's going to be some amazing women there, and I can't wait to bring my boldness. If you also would like to be one of our sponsors, you have an opportunity here, if you look at the screen, to be one of our $10, $20, or $30 sponsors to maybe get your business and brand in front of there. For $10, we'll have you scroll at the bottom of the screen. For $20, we'll have your business and brand event will scroll across the screen and you will get mentioned. And then for $30, your business, brand, and product will just scroll across the screen, but we'll also showcase your commercial if you have one, and we'll make sure we mention you. So go to www.theboldenexperience.com, or you can email us at theboldenexperience@gmail.com. You can also purchase a couple of my books as well. We have Differently Able, which is a book that deals with special needs communities that I turned into a musical. You can connect with us more on the website to see what other books I have, the Bolden Blueprint and all that other great stuff. We already mentioned about the Bolden Awards, but if you want more information, this is where we're going to be at. And our event at the Doubletree by Hilton, Atlanta, Windy Hill Ballpark on May the 23rd. All right, y'all, it's time for our Bolden shout-outs. You know, I can't believe, since it's December, I got 2 Bolden shout-outs. I said, you know what, it's Christmas. I'm in the Christmas spirit of giving, so we got 2 Bolden shout-outs. So our first Bolden shout-out of the day goes to my brother, George Lima, who was on the cover of Bold issue of our magazine. George is an amazing junior professional. He's talented. He's humble. He lets his work speak for himself. He was in Jurassic World, Naked Gun this year. And he was also the star of Looking for Love in All the Wrong Places, my first stage production. He is on the cover of Bolden magazine. And George just knows how to keep drama on set. He is committed. He's dedicated. He's a brother who I respect. He's always placing, always has a place at Deonte Bolden Productions. If you all need to connect with him, please do. If you're a playwright yourself, he is an amazing actor. Follow him at George Lima 1013 on Instagram. And our final Bolden shout out today goes to my brother here, Marcus Percy. He is, yes, give it up for Marcus. He is a gifted choreographer, a dynamic dancer known for his passion, precision, and powerful storytelling through movement. With a style rooted in authenticity and artistic excellence, Marcus uses dance to inspire, uplift, and connect with audiences. He will be opening for the Bolden Awards, so he's going to be doing some African dance at the Bolden Awards, so I'm excited. And he's also going to be one of my honorees. I'm not telling him what award he's going to get. It's going to be a surprise on May 23rd, so if you want to meet him, definitely make sure you're in the building. Marcus brings boldness, heart, dedication, and undeniable presence to the world of dance. So make sure you all connect with him as well. He is Marcus Percy on Facebook. With that being said, I think we went through everything. I'm loving this. Our purpose picks of the day goes to Purpose Pains, Differently Able, and the Bolden Blueprint. My bold challenge for you all is to reach out to a brother and check on him today. Mental health is very important. Check on your brothers and make sure that we're doing good. With that being said, be bold, be brave, amplify your bold voice. Oh, before I leave, let me make sure I give this to Pastor Patton, who I am opening to honoring at the Bolden Awards. You're definitely an amazing brother. For the Bold Beacon Award, I think you are definitely shining a light through your ministry and everything that you're doing. So I definitely want to make sure we get another footage of you actually opening that up today. But I wanted to give you that honor, brother, because I definitely admire you and what you have been bringing to my life and so many others. So with that being said, you all be bold, be brave, amplify your bold voice so the world has no choice but to experience your greatness. I'll see y'all on the next one.
Be bold.